So in 1498, Vasco da Gama landed over here in India. His boats bedraggled, his men ravaged with scurvy. 522 years later, I have arrived here in fine form thanks to this car, all the way from Bombay. This is Kerala. Welcome to Kerala. Bichara Vasco was up against malaria and Malayalam to find his way around Kerala to meet the Zamorin. But thanks to Google Maps, my plan was sorted. First, I would head to the lush rainforest of Wyonid in the Western Ghats, then to the lesser-known Nathika Beach. From there, I would turn south to meet an old colleague at Mundakayam. Next would be the tranquil avian haven of Kumarakam, before finishing off at Fort Cochin, where old Vasco dropped dead on Christmas Eve 1524. Due to its geography, Wyonid has a microclimate, and sure enough, even though the monsoons were a month away, I encountered a thunderstorm as soon as I started up the hills. The next morning, I drove to a local football field where Pradeep Murthy from Muddy Boots Adventures was waiting for me. Hi Pradeep.
Hey Rishad.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here.
How's things?
Good. It was a long drive, but I'm here finally. The plan was to go cycling, but for that, the cycle had to first be transported. Of course, that wasn't a problem with the moving house kind of boot space that the ND affords. I'll just put the seats down.
Just remove the front wheel second.
No, why you want to remove the front wheel?
तो पूछना चाहिए ना गाड़ी.
अरे नहीं यार, I'll put the middle row also down and there'll be enough room. Okay? Don't remove it. Then came my coolie number one moment as I carried the cycle from the ford to the bamboo raft. Drifting down the Anoth Puza was a definite highlight of that day. I had been on the go for 3 days, propelled by diesel, and now to just sit back and float to the whims of the current and a barge pole was a refreshing change of pace. Just as I was thinking that I could do this all day, we arrived at the landing point, from where I had to carry the cycle up the steep bank to the trail. But the trail itself was level, and the recent thunderstorms had tempered the summer heat. Besides that, the fresh green of the tea shrubs were a pretty accompaniment as I pedaled the mud tracks towards the roadhead. The end of my cycling trail met the road where Muddy Boots has its ziplining setup. Hi.
Hi. How was the cycling?
Cycling was very nice. Lovely estates. Little hot, but very nice. So I can do this ziplining? Sure. It'll take my weight. Definitely. Won't break, no? Okay. Sure, 100%. Zzz. All right. Okay, then. Let's do it. awesome, that was awesome. I'm so glad I did it. After that active day out, it was good to come back to the comfort of Wyonid Wild. This comfortable property is situated deep in the heart of a Western Ghat rainforest without any set boundaries. So the forest flora and fauna are constant companions. Some balconies look out over treetops, while others might afford views of distant wild elephants. There is also an infinity pool to soak away the rigors of the day. You could certainly say that my Kerala road trip was on to a good start with the promise of even more adventure to come. Do check out episode 2. The plan A for the next morning was a trek through a plantation in Mepadi. This was not a manicured tea plantation like yesterday. In fact, it was more of a canopied forest, dense with massive old trees amidst which plants of pepper and creepers of cardamom grow. But when I reached the foot trail, I had to move to plan B because there were wild elephants in the vicinity. Fortunately, I had the Ford and I could carry on along the narrow and broken foot trail within the safety and security of the endeavor. When I arrived at the end of the trail, I was greeted by a very inviting natural swimming pool. And on any other day, I would have jumped in without a second thought. But with Hathis hollering away so close, I definitely wasn't going to be caught with my pants down. Which is a shame because it was a superb spot to soak in the cool green water. Though distances in Kerala are not big, because of narrow roads and traffic, the time taken to cover them is long. So I took a night halt at the little known Nathika Beach on my way to Mundakayam. By the time I arrived at the Nathika Ayurveda resort, it was close to sunset. And after a hot and humid day of driving through the interiors of Kerala, the sea was calling out to me like a siren song. So I dumped shoes, socks and jeans and ran towards the waves like how Vasco's sailors must have charged towards a beach not far from here 5 centuries ago. And the water was so welcoming that I hurriedly lost my t-shirt too and was soon neck deep in the waves that were washed golden by the setting sun. The resort itself is a luxury wellness retreat with Ayurveda treatments and a spa. Nathika Beach is just one of the many beaches that is off the regular tourist map along Kerala's 580-kilometer coastline, and many of these are deserted except for local fishermen. And quite a few of these beaches have easy access to the smooth and unblemished sand. So naturally, after checking out from the resort and before heading towards Mundakayam, I drove out onto the beach to have some fun with the endeavor. Coming up in episode 3, I meet the headmaster of the Dirty School in Mundakayam, give the fourth suspension a workout, and wear a Velamundu in Kumarakom. Mundakayam is not on the regular Kerala tourist trail, but it has a few technical dirt tracks where Ausep Chaco goes and plays with his motorcycles. So I drove out to meet him on one of these trails.
Hello.
What's up? Long time.
Where's your RT-PCR test?
I've got it. All clear. RT-PCR negative. What's up? Good.
Long time, man.
Long time. So, Chaco, my old colleague from my auto magazine days, now runs this thing called the Dirty School, right?
Hey, Dirty School. School of Dirt.
The School of Dirt. Okay, the School of Dirt, not Dirty School.
Common, serious thing.
Okay, the School of Dirt, okay? So, since I was in Kerala, I thought that I'll just come and say hello. And he's going to take us up some crazy off-road trails, right?
Yep.
And
Backyard.
Backyard. This is his backyard. So, for the car, we'll have some fun. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Chalo. At first, the trail was pretty smooth and through lush green terraces. But then it became quite challenging, with rocks jutting out everywhere. In a lesser car, I would have desisted from carrying on. But the high ground clearance and the reassuring torque of what I was driving gave me the confidence to proceed on this rock-strewn trail. Crawling over the rocks to get to the top, we came to a stop where the trail took a nosedive and the clouds hung low. We were now standing in the Annamala Hills overlooking Urambikara. Also known as the Elephant Mountains, this southern part of the Western Ghats run from the border of Tamil Nadu to central Kerala. The Annamalais are hydrated by generous rainfall and many rivers, hence several waterfalls abound. One such waterfall is the Madamakulam, literally meaning Madam's Waterfall. The story behind the name is that during the Raj, when the tea estate owners were out hunting, the madams of the household would come here and frolic and bathe. A certain Madam Robinson was particularly fond of this waterfall that has a lovely natural swimming pool below it. Because we were in a bit of a rush, I only facepalmed the water. It's a short 70-kilometer drive from Mundakayam to Kumarakom, and the last 15 kilometers are especially scenic because the backwaters come into view. At Kumarakom, my road trip went into wind-down mode, and I parked the Ford and took a boat to Coconut Lagoon that adjoins Vembanad Lake, which is an avian haven. My time at Coconut Lagoon was like a rudderless ship sailing directionless to the whim of the wind. I spent time around this verdant property, soaking in the pool, lazing in hammocks, bird watching and cruising the lake at sunset. All this was interspersed with delicious food and refreshing cups of tea or coffee. On my penultimate day at Coconut Lagoon, Oos entered the scene again, sailing up to the resort's lobby with his friend Samira in a boat called Oops. They were going to take me out for some typical Kerala food and drink, so I thought I would suitably dress for the occasion. Incidentally, the boat was not named Oops because someone was accidentally conceived within, but rather because landlubbers often trip while getting in. Cruising the backwaters in the little speedboat was definitely the highlight of the day. We arrived at a little eating house in the R block section of the backwaters, and while climbing out of the boat, I lived up to its name, though it was not oops that came out of my mouth. These little restaurants on the backwaters are very basic, but the food is freshly caught and the drink is freshly collected. We had prawns, fish and clams fresh out of the water and washed it down with toddy collected from palm trees that morning.
So, I've reached the end of my Kerala road trip and I'm in Cochin. This is St. Francis's Church. If you recall, we started in Kapad where Vasco da Gama landed in 1498. This is where he died and was buried for many years when he died in 1524. So it's quite fitting that we end over here.
My final night in Kerala was at the Brunton Boatyard Hotel on Fort Cochin's waterfront. Built on the site of boat builder Geo Brunton and Sons' 19th century boatyard, this hotel is in the heart of Cochin's historical district. Remnants of the past are but a few footsteps away from this colonial Malabar-style mansion. Tomorrow I would start my drive back to Bombay. But today I was content to sit and watch the waterway from where once heavily laden merchant ships started off on their long journey fraught with danger and uncertainty to the far side of the world.